Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak at your national conference. As some of you will know, I am the United Kingdom's first independent anti-slavery commissioner, and my role is to spearhead efforts to tackle the crime both domestically and internationally. To do this, I need your help and ongoing support. But first, it might be helpful to give you an overview of the UK's current modern slavery strategy. As Commissioner, I am determined to oversee real change in the way this crime is viewed and tackled in every sector of society. It is one of the most serious crimes of our age, and I want to see it treated that way. Over the last year, I have identified the need for increased professionalism in every part of the UK's response. The consistency, quality and accountability that comes with this approach will save lives. We all need to recognise slavery when we see it and know what to do about it. The GLAA's recent partnership with Crime Stoppers to raise awareness of the signs of modern slavery is a prime example of good practice, and I applaud it wholeheartedly. It sends out the message that real harm is being done to real people and that it is our responsibility as a moral society to address the issue. Campaigns like yours communicate clearly that slavery is happening today and is not something that is consigned to the history books. So how do I plan to continue fighting on behalf of the brave victims I meet? First and foremost, I want law enforcement agencies to deploy the same asset in the fight against modern slavery as they use for other serious organised crimes. From police on the front line to judges on the benches, all legal professionals must be trained to deal with slavery properly. I also want to see Britain's professional workforce bring its expertise into the modern slavery arena. From gangmasters to GPs, social workers to NHS sisters, all those responsible for the vulnerable must be coordinated in their responses. This will help create a climate of safety, and safe victims are more likely to tell their stories and help launch prosecutions. British citizens can also play their part, calling the police or helplines if they see signs of slavery. They can boycott products and places where they believe it lurks. Nail bars, car washes, farms. Just as the Quakers helped to end slavery by encouraging sugar boycotts in the 19th century, we too can make our voices heard through consumer choice. And of course, businesses have an important role to play in combating the crime. Many of the products we buy and use every day are tainted by slavery. It hides in the shadows of supply chains from fishing to fashion. So proper licensing methods, like those you are responsible for, are crucial. Section 54 of the Modern Slavery Act requires all businesses operating in the UK with a turnover of 36 million or more to annually publish what they are doing to rid slavery from supply chains. This clause has already resulted in a positive culture change. The Act has also allowed for the expansion of the remit of the UK's Labour Inspectorate, now the Gangmasters and Labour Abuse Authority, as many of you well know. The Modern Slavery Act has undoubtedly sparked a cultural shift in the private sector, with more companies and senior leaders now openly engaging in the cause. But compliance remains weak, and some companies are failing to meet minimum requirements of the Act, such as having a statement signed off by senior leaders prior to publication. We need to push companies to dig deeper, to focus on an inward lens, not just on how supply chain slavery can be addressed, but also how it was allowed to flourish in the first place. This will require a huge cultural shift, both in agencies like the GLAA, whose lens will need to become even more powerful, but also in society as a whole. Consumers hold the kind of power in their wallets which business take notice of. Traffickers who are abusing, raping and stealing do not care what is said at the UN or in Whitehall. They only care if their freedom and profits are taken away. And the stakes are high. The International Labour Organization estimates that the total illegal profits from modern slavery worldwide amount to over 150 billion US dollars per year. This makes it one of the top 3 most profitable illicit global enterprise. To make a dent in this activity, we need to ensure that the business model is not viable in Europe and anywhere in the world. We need to continue to work together to make human trafficking a high-risk, low-profit enterprise, and labour inspectors have the power to do this. Thankfully, things are moving in the right direction globally. France and the Netherlands have recently passed new legislation, and Australia is in the process of following suit. A mindset of what's the minimum I need to do is no longer acceptable in the business sector because it is costing lives. The newly incorporated GLA is playing its part in helping employers to understand this. Slavery in supply chains is not a compliance issue or a business malpractice. It is a serious and pernicious crime. The effective enforcement of labour standards is a vital piece of the puzzle, and I'm delighted that the UK has taken important steps forward in this direction, namely in appointing a Director of Labour Market Enforcement and expanding the remit of the GLA. It is absolutely vital that tackling modern slavery remains at the core of these agendas and that we all promote compliance with the Modern Slavery Act. I believe this can be achieved utilising the 4 following strategies. Firstly, identifying and supporting companies displaying good practice in anti-slavery efforts and promoting the sharing of best practice. Secondly, working with industry media and trade bodies to highlight the prevalence of modern slavery crime and promote solutions. Thirdly, developing anti-slavery initiatives with businesses whose services are unwittingly used to facilitate modern slavery, including within the transport, financial and telecommunications industry. And finally, and of course, work with the GLA. I hope you all agree that we need to examine opportunities for regulation of particular industries, such as nail bars and car washes, and improved intelligence sharing with labour inspectors in countries where a high number of modern slavery victims originate from. We also need to engage with trade unions to improve knowledge in high-risk sectors. This will better protect workers' rights and promote good business practice by highlighting projects providing victims with the dignity of decent work. Co-op, for example, currently runs a wonderful employment initiative for modern slavery victims. I cannot stress the need for urgent action enough. Modern slavery is an organised crime which affects the lives of over 40 million people. Ruthless criminals are exploiting the hopes and dreams of individuals looking for decent work. Traffickers promise good jobs and new lives, but take people's freedom and hard-earned wages. Workers arrive in the UK, often in debt, with the traffickers having paid for their travel and first few weeks' rent. Bank accounts are opened in their name and they are placed into jobs in the construction and agricultural industry, for example. But unbeknown to many employers, the wages are not going to the worker, but to a gangmaster who has confiscated their passport and is working labourers on shifts so that dozens of workers can be crammed into a small apartment. Thankfully, with your help, the UK is taking important steps to protect such workers. The slavery we see today exists for the same purpose as it has throughout history, to maximise profit for exploiters by minimising or eliminating the cost of labour. But together we can change this for the thousands of vulnerable workers who have no one to help set them free, except us. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.